Well, we're at 11 o'clock. I think we'll just wait a little bit longer for George here. And I have texted him. Okay, gang's all here. Other than I don't think I see Keith Montag, now that I think of it.
He is going to try and call in, so he should be here shortly.
I saw him in his office a little while ago when I dropped some supplies past the courthouse. Well, I think we'll get going with public comment. It's 11:02. Do we have any public comment today? I am looking just to Facebook right now myself, and I imagine George is too by now. I don't see anything. So that being said, I think we'll start our COVID update. Suzanne, I see you here. Is Tim coming on today?
Tim is on.
I'm on, Randy.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
He's on. He just did the radio interview. So Tim, yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Are we ready for an update?
Yes, please.
So let me run down the numbers. I don't have any fancy charts today because I'm on phone. Currently in Clear Creek County, we have had 30 cases over the last 2-week period. Our current incident rate is 308 per 100,000, and our test positivity rate is hovering around 7.8%. Those numbers are right in line with what we're seeing across the state of Colorado. Most counties now are experiencing what we're experiencing in Clear Creek County in terms of a surge of cases. We do have now one additional hospitalization, which occurred over the weekend, and the viral spread seems to continue unabated throughout not only our county, but the state and the country as well. As you may know, looking at some of the charts on the Johns Hopkins website, most states around us are absolutely red, meaning that they're spiking just like we are. Some of the states are a little ahead of us, a couple of weeks. Utah is now on significant hospital bed shortage and are rationing that. Wyoming and South Dakota, as an example, their test positivity rates are 40 and 50 respectively. So 40 to 50% of tests they're running are positive. Dr. Deborah Birx was in the state yesterday, and I was on a call with her. She's on the White House COVID task force, as well as Governor Polis. She was absolutely pleading with the state and with the counties to do more and do what we can, and issued a statement this morning from the White House stating basically the same thing for across the country, that unlike months ago when we saw just spikes in Texas and Florida and California, this is far more ubiquitous now. It is now in 30 plus states, spikes through the roof. So it isn't isolated states and it isn't isolated problems. It's now so widespread that it is on sort of a tipping point. If things don't change in the very near future, meaning in the next few days and weeks, things could take a drastic turn for the worse. It's not fear mongering, it is basic reality. These spikes that we see in Clear Creek and in Colorado and across the country are resulting in parallel increases in hospitalization, and eventually those hospital beds run out. And that's when the fatalities start to really tick up. So they're currently running 3 to 4 weeks behind what we see in terms of hospitalizations. And so coming over the next 3-4 weeks in Colorado and across the state for that matter, or across the country, we're seeing those increases in hospitalizations and subsequent increase in fatalities. Any questions so far?
No.
We have, as I said last week, switched fully to the oral test. We're now using that only. We're no longer sending test results or lab results to the state. We're sending all of our tests to Curative in California. We're currently getting around a 48-hour turnaround time, sometimes less, sometimes slightly more. The state still has 24 of our tests that we ran almost 2 weeks ago. We're still waiting for results from those, but that would be the last test we have with the state. Otherwise, we're going to continue using Curative. I ordered an additional 1,000 tests last Friday, hoping to receive those this week, and we will continue to implement those to anyone and everyone who wants a test. I would strongly encourage our 20 to 40-year-old population in Clear Creek County, please, whether you're symptomatic or not, come in and get a test. Do yourself a favor and your community a favor. Those are the age groups that are really driving the cases. Lots of people who are asymptomatic wandering around doing what they normally do and spreading the virus to all. So please come in and get a free test. It's an oral swab. Couldn't be simpler. It's not invasive at all or uncomfortable. And we'll have your test results back in 2 days' time. It's better to know than to not know and be out there as a silent spreader, spreading it throughout our community. We continue to have some businesses who, for some reason or another, choose to not enforce masks or wear them at all in their place of business. We're doing the best that we can to follow up with those and to enforce that mandate, but it is challenging. So we're asking the community at large to do their part and to go into these businesses and ask them to, in fact, mandate those masks and wear them. Masks and social distancing and hand washing right now are our only way to help stop the spread. There's no special cure that's coming down the pipeline. The vaccine is many, many months away. It isn't around the corner either. We're not rounding any corner. We're going straight up a hill. And in order to reverse that course, we need to do better than what we're doing. Small parties continue to drive our numbers. Just a single household having another household over is enough to spread the virus to 5-10 people, depending on how many people you have in your home and invite over. So I would strongly discourage any sorts of behaviors like that. I have gotten several reports of Halloween parties over the weekend, which is very unfortunate, and we will see in the coming week or two what results from that. My guess is it's going to result in some more cases. So I'm not really sure what more public health can do. We have been trying and pounding the drum for months and months on end with the same message. The message hasn't changed. Masks work when you wear them properly and all the time, and you socially distance and you don't have gatherings. Those are really our only hope for turning this around. So I would plead with the entire community to do those simple things. It isn't about you, the individual. It's about our community and the society that we live in. If we want to keep our businesses open, we need to do those very simple things of wearing a mask and social distancing and wash your hands. It cannot be any simpler than that. We can't magically open the economy when the virus is raging in the way that it is any more than we already have. So do your part. It's really that simple.
Thank you. Questions?
Thanks, Tim. I got a couple questions. You mentioned 30 in the last 2 weeks. How many in the last just 1 week?
In the last week, we've seen about a dozen. Again, we're still waiting for those 24 tests, so that may very well change today or whenever we get those results back, but about a dozen in the last week.
Right, but even if there are results from those, that was more than 2 weeks ago, you mentioned, right?
It was from it would have been 2 weeks today. So those would come up from previous ones. So yeah.
Okay, and I think
Our-
go ahead.
No, our numbers are going up, no matter how you look at it. Those cases we've seen this week are really a result of what we saw 2 weeks ago in terms of continued spread within the community.
So I think the idea of moving over to the curative test where our fate's in our own hands was a good plan, and I commend you for that. Do you foresee any risk of them being overwhelmed and them starting to serve fancy counties and leaving us out in the dark again, or out in the cold, I guess?
Well, they're under contractual agreement of the 48-hour turnaround time, which is a good thing. The second is the state, many counties in the state, the larger counties, Tri-County, Larimer County, et cetera, have been paired with a different lab so that they're not overwhelmed by any demand, single demand in Colorado per se. I do not know what other states are utilizing curative at this point, but if that changes, if curative is no longer able to turn around in less than 48 hours, we don't have an alternative to that. The state lab has looked down every single rabbit hole there is to find labs to pair counties with. And so we're sort of at the end of the line. There are no coming online labs. So curative is right now our only, literally, our only lab we can go to. The state lab isn't even accepting our labs anymore. So we don't have an alternative.
Okay, and did the state connect us with curative, or was that done some other way?
The state had set up the contractual agreement initially, and then we reached out to curative and began the conversation specifically for Clear Creek County in terms of getting supplies and signing up and doing all that sort of thing.
Okay, because I think you mentioned on a previous call that this wasn't coming, not that I think it would be fine to spend money on this, but I think you mentioned that for whatever reason, this wasn't costing us anything.
No, the state is picking up the tab on this 100%.
Okay, thanks. That's all I've got for now.
We have a question in the chat line, the Q&A. Did our level get changed? We're to level 2 now still, right?
We're at a level 1 still. The state reached out to me yesterday. I reached back out to them and have not heard back from them. So they're quite busy, as you might imagine. And yesterday we tried to connect and didn't connect. Hopefully we'll be able to connect today. But given our numbers, we're going to switch to level 2. There's not really a question about that. Given our incident and test positivity are both at level 2 and 3. So that's sort of a foregone conclusion. I think businesses should continue to do what they're doing and be diligent in terms of mask wearing and social distancing and sanitizing, et cetera. Going from level 1 to level 2 fundamentally doesn't change any of that sort of thing. It's merely a number of percentage that can be in a restaurant, as an example. So when that happens, I will let everybody know once the state and I connect and they make that conclusion. So.
And again, level 2 gives us how many in a restaurant total? I know it's a percentage and a hot, just so we're clear on that.
So it's a 50%, and the maximum I believe is 100 and something. I don't have it in front of me, Randy. I apologize, but it's on the CDC or the CDPHE website under their COVID dial. All the parameters are right there on that dial.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Craig just posted, and I think he's right on this. I just wanted it out there in public so that we were clear. Level 2, when we moved to level 2, it's 50% or 50 people. I think level 1 was at 100 or 125.
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
So we would be moving from 125 to 50 max in a restaurant.
Yeah, and that's really only going to impact 1 or 2 restaurants total in the county from a maximum perspective.
And a question from Corinne, does that capacity limitation apply to indoor seating only or total seating?
It's indoor seating only, but we don't really have outdoor seating anymore. Idaho Springs got rid of theirs this last weekend due to parking issues. So it's a indoor seating issue, and the weather's changing here in the next week or 5 days, so it's not really going to be as relevant.
Okay, other questions? Suzanne, do you bring us anything today?
I'll bring you just a little bit so we can answer some other questions as needed. That as we were early on in this year, the Emergency Operations Center for the county has activated remotely to support, activated it last Friday, the 23rd, in support of the wildfire activity happening in Grand County to coordinate any needs for any of the folks coming from Grand County. There weren't any needs that were expressed as far as fire activity, but we expanded that EOC quickly to support the needs for COVID. A lot of it is public messaging and simply coordinating among our response agencies. So we have calls twice a week with our public health, with Clear Creek Fire Authority, with our law enforcement through the sheriff's office, through our school district, and emergency management, and we'll add others if we need to, and EMS if I didn't mention them. The good news is at this spot in time, those agencies have the resources and sense of PPE and personnel needed. But this is, the case numbers are increasing rapidly, as Tim mentioned. And we talked about this early on in COVID, the impact of this for Clear Creek, while the health impacts might be different for individuals. Some people might have slight symptoms, some people might have severe symptoms. If it impacts our first response agencies, like it is the rest of the public, if someone has symptoms, they have to be in quarantine, staying away from other people for 14 days. That's best practice. That's also to keep everybody else safe. If that impacts our capability for EMS or for our law enforcement or for our fire authority, that's going to severely impact our ability to respond within Clear Creek County. Normally, if we have large fires like other counties are doing, for example, you can rely on other counties, state and federal agencies to help you. As people know, COVID is nationwide, it's globally. We don't have all the resources we normally would be able to ask for with our regional partners and statewide. Everybody is impacted severely by this. So with knowing the increase in hospitalizations early on, if you all recall, there were the governor turned off the ability to have elective surgeries. Those elective surgeries are now ongoing. So the capacity for hospitals is expanding. COVID is impacting them as well, not just in their response, but who gets sick that provides that care. So their staffing levels are not what they want them to be because they're getting sick as well. So if we look at this community-wide, that's why we are trying to express upon people the need to prevent this from spreading. It's not only for how you feel or how your family or household feels. We need your help. We need your help in keeping these numbers down so that EMS can continue to provide regular services and provide COVID services in the sense of transporting people to a hospital, because we don't have a hospital in Clear Creek County. So EMS needs to transport those people, and the hospitals need to have space for people. So the more that people can take care of themselves, we can stay out of the hospital, be able to respond effectively, and as Tim mentioned, keep our businesses open, which we all want to do, and keep our economy going. So it's a serious situation that we're in at this point, and it's fast moving, but yet it's slow. It's fast in that we're looking at our numbers every day as far as case numbers go, but as we had mentioned, case numbers isn't the only factor that we're looking at. Yeah, you look at the fatality rates, but as Tim mentioned, those are a few weeks, you get the illnesses, then you get the hospitalizations, then you get fatalities. And fatalities are not the only factor. The care that people need are, again, ventilators and constant care, and they're staying in the hospitals longer. So the impact to Clear Creek is, I hope we don't get there. And I hope what we do is everybody takes this very seriously and is able to do what we need to do with mask wearing and staying away from others to prevent some more serious impacts from happening. As far as the EOC goes, we're doing a lot of public messaging. We're trying to tailor our public messaging now to be a little bit more urgent, a little bit more serious. The message has been the same from the beginning of here's the things we can do. The other thing we're working on is a lot of these funds right now, not a lot, some of these funds run out the end of this year. So we're working together with Alyssa as our recovery coordinator. We're working with our finance director. We're working to figure out how these funds are applied effectively and make sure that our responders and public health, our nurses can continue to operate. So we're juggling that. And, I do want to express that right now, the public can make a difference. It's going to take a little while for that impact to be seen. What you do now will impact what happens in a couple of weeks. As you all know, it is now November. Flu season is coming up. Cold season is coming up. The impact to potentially our healthcare, our response organizations and hospitals could be severe. We don't want to get into a position where the other states are of deciding who gets care and who doesn't. But it's going to be coming to that. All the reports that we're getting from our regional hospitals and our statewide hospitals, if we don't do something now, it's going to get to that. So anyway, that is what we are doing. We're also monitoring I know this is a COVID update, but the EOC is also monitoring the fire activity. East Troublesome is 37% contained. Williams Fork is 75% contained. So we're doing that as well. And today we're monitoring elections activity as far as what is going on in any other counties to see if there might be any trends or anything happening. So that is all I have. I will leave it at that and be here for any questions. Thanks.
I see another question from Corinne Westerman, and I think this would be for Tim. You said last week that the outbreak in Georgetown had spread to the high school. It was an example of community spread. In general terms, is there evidence of additional spread to other locations, towns, or other schools recently?
And Randy, this is Keith. I know Tim had another engagement, so he's already dropped off. Perhaps we could send that question to him. Or Suzanne, I don't know if you have any, or Alyssa, if you have any response to that question as well.
Yeah, according to our meeting that we had with our responders yesterday, including public health, no. But again, as you heard, there wasn't spread beyond, significant spread beyond the impact in Georgetown and the high school. However, I will caveat that, clearly Tim continues to receive test results. And so what we say right now, it is, again, moving fast, the pace, the numbers. So yeah, we can definitely reach out to him and make sure that we are providing that update. But as of our morning meeting yesterday, it was in those two places.
All right. Other
Well,
questions?
I'll clarify as far as outbreaks, which is more than, there's still cases in other places, but if we want to, so we have to be careful to say it's just because there isn't an outbreak in other places, it doesn't mean there are cases, not cases in other places. So the nurses are working really hard to keep up with all this. So, thank you, public health. Thank you, nurses, for all that you're doing.
Other questions? So we do have today also on the agenda to go into an executive session. I think we had a couple of topics, but I just want to make sure, because I don't think we're coming back from that executive session into open session. Is that correct? Okay. So I just want to make sure we cover anything anyone wants to talk about in open meeting here still. We just really came in for the COVID update today. Figured it was election day and a lot of people were busy and preoccupied, so.
I do have something really quick I just want to say, and this has been said at the Idaho Springs Economic Recovery meetings every week, but I just want to make sure business owners feel empowered to not let people into their business that aren't wearing masks. this is your responsibility and you have every right to say no. We are really looking to you to help us make sure that we're controlling the spread. We have gotten a couple reports recently of people refusing to wear masks, or even employees that are not encouraging the mask wearing or requiring the mask wearing. And so I know it's been said a lot, but I just want to reiterate the importance of wearing masks in public places. Even if you're outside, please make sure you're wearing a mask. And if you have any concerns or questions at all, please feel free to reach out to myself or Becca Abrahamson, who is our community, I'm going to totally screw up her name, consumer protection specialist, who is, did I get that right? Who is working with our businesses to make sure that they have all their answers or questions answered.
One thing I just thought of that Suzanne mentioned the fire stuff, just so people know, the Forest Service did reevaluate Monday and decided to hold off again and going out of stage 3. They want to reevaluate on tomorrow, Wednesday. And when I talked to Monty, he said the main reason was that we do have what could be some significant snow in the forecast, but it's a little bit iffy where it's going to hit and how much. His, of course, concern is more northern Colorado, the Arapahoe-Roosevelt National Forest, and some of the weather reports are suggesting that the snow could be more heavy in the south. Toward that end, I looked up this morning, both Wolf Creek and Empire and Wolf Creek area showed that they could be picking up, about 3 days worth of snow down here, whereas I think Empire was in the 60s still through Saturday, and a potential of snow on Sunday and Monday, but it wasn't sure. So he's just waiting for the weather report to settle down a little bit, so he's got a little more certainty before he makes a decision about whether to pull off or not. He's kind of afraid of calling it off and then finding out the snow skips the northern part of the state, which is his whole forest. So that's just an FYI there. Still waiting on the Forest Service to make a decision on that. And they said they'd be with us tomorrow. And then it could be a continuation for a couple more days.
Randy, that comment generated a question that you might know the answer to, or maybe Rick does. The thrust of the question is, how are we going to know the outcome of that decision tomorrow? Where can people look for information on that?
I would imagine that the sheriff could potentially react to whatever that decision is. I would imagine that if the force stays in stage 3, we would remain unchanged as well. If they felt there was strong enough reason to remain in stage 3 through the weekend, like they didn't see enough precipitation for our area, and they remain in, that we would probably follow suit. If they come out, then our current fire ban was altered to include hunting in the no firearms part. He might make a decision to change that or might not. So I would say that we would post that on our site and probably on our Facebook site as well once we know, echo it. And I would ask that we do that, whatever, that we revisit after tomorrow, we revisit with Monty. And I happen to know Monty's been, he's been calling me and letting me know, and then he gets, and us, occasionally me, and always the sheriff, and I know he's been talking with Rick. Because when yesterday, I contacted him to see what was going on, and he told me, and he said he'd already talked with Rick about it too. So he actually contacts all the counties and everybody to see what they, what's going on. So we'll know more tomorrow on that front. Anything else? Any other questions? If not, then I think there are I move that we move into executive session for the following purposes. Bob?
Conference with attorney for the public body for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions relating to HIPAA pursuant to 24-6-402 sub 4 sub B. Determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation, or determining negotiating strategies, or instructing negotiators with respect to fundraising and EMS pursuant to 24-6-402 sub 4 sub E.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will now move into executive session. No written minutes will be kept of that session. We will not be coming back into open meeting after this. And so for the archives, let me state that we have ended our executive session and no written minutes were kept of the session. Thank you and see you on the other side. And do we have a link yet? Okay.
Thanks, everybody.